took us about 5 hours to get from Punsan Bay to the start of Frenchman's Track, with a quick stop at Bramwell Junction for a well-earned feed.
So here we are on the final leg of our epic Far North Queensland Cape York off-road adventure. The start of Frenchman's Track is right here. It's about 76 kilometres long. We don't know too much about this track. We do know it has two main river crossings, firstly the Wenlock and then the Pascoe River. Both of those are quite deep by reputation. Having come down from Bramwell Junction, we'll be travelling this track from west to east. Now there is a little conjecture on the history of this track. Some say it was an old French guy here from the gold prospecting days. Others say it was a French geophysical survey party that made the track here while looking for oil. Either way, it's now another four-wheel driver's heaven, and we are very much looking forward to tackling this enigmatic track.
We started Frenchman's at about 3 p.m, so we knew we would be camping on the track for at least one night.
So lads, Frenchman's Track. This is our last track on this adventure. How do you feel about that?
Oh, sad.
Sad, yeah?
Yeah, man.
Why?
I want to keep going and doing more shit.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Like, we've just pulled on here and I'm already like, I don't know, there's something that comes over me that says, ah, yes, this is where I want to be again.
Yeah, but it has to come to an end, otherwise it would be normal and it would get boring and you'd want to do something else.
Yeah, that's it. Hey, duality of things. It's, you know, without any bad, there's no good, and without boredom, there's no adventure. So this wouldn't be adventure if it was a full-time thing. So, yeah, good point.
A couple of times along the way, we had been warned that the Pascoe was higher than normal and was causing issues for those wishing to cross. As usual, we decided to give it a go regardless. We made an assessment that they were all being dramatic and probably weren't as well prepared as we were. We knew we could always turn back if we had to.
So other than a few nasty corrugations, the first few Ks of Frenchman's Track are pretty sedate. So I think a filling came loose though, just before.
Frenchman's Track between Telegraph Road and Wenlock River is very straight and easy to navigate, but you definitely need to keep your wits about you. There's only a few sections of muddy bog holes, but nothing like what we'd seen over the past 10 days.
You might notice if you look at the map of Frenchman's Track that it's a very straight road, and we feel it's in part due to the fact that they wanted to get to where they were going as fast as possible, really. You know what, I was actually just thinking that if you have a look at the French line in the Simpson Desert, it's also another dead straight track like this one here. So perhaps it's a French theme. Straight tracks, no imagination.
Even with time allowed for filming, we got to the Wenlock River just after 4 p.m, and the entrance to the river was pretty steep and mogully, so we all wanted to have a very good look before proceeding.
So basically, just choosing the line here, this here is a little bit sketchy. It's going to lean to the right, so we're going to use this side of the bank here to prop it back up, and it'll be straight all the way down. Alright, so the first part of this descent into Wenlock River is a little bit off camber, but we've picked a good line, and Sam's going to drive both the vehicles down and I'll spot and take a few photos.
The Wenlock is obviously the first big highlight on Frenchman's Track, and I wanted to film the vehicles coming down into the river. So as usual, Sam was tasked with getting both vehicles down. We employed the method that has been successful so far. Slow and steady wins the race, with a second and third pair of eyes to keep an eye on anything that was looking dodgy for the vehicles. Although the Wenlock River is a freshwater river, we still kept our eyes peeled for crocs. Maybe we'd gone a little bit crazy after all this time off-roading. We all agreed it was going to be an interesting night. So with the help of the GME radio, I guided him down while taking photos. And yet again, Sam's skills behind the wheel were exemplary, with both vehicles making it into the Wenlock River safe and sound. By this time, we were all pretty exhausted, and it was a no-brainer to make camp in the dry section of the riverbed for the night. After a sweaty and hot day in the saddle, the allure of swimming in the Wenlock River was all too great, although we did keep our eyes peeled for crocs. It was a good choice. Everyone needed to cool down and have a swim and wash off the dust of the day.
So here we are, day 2 on Frenchman's track. You may have seen from yesterday, it was a bit of a gnarly descent into Wenlock River here, which is stunning. We got here about 4 in the afternoon. We decided to have a camp and a bit of a swim because it was such a hot day and such a beautiful area, so why not? We camped up here last night. This morning, things changed up a little bit. We were sitting here enjoying our morning coffee, and we had a couple of four-wheel drivers just come down through here, and they'd made it to the Pascoe River, and they weren't singing the praises of the depth of this river. It was about this tall. So we're sort of thinking, will we, won't we? We're not too sure yet, but we're prepared to go down there and take a look for ourselves, and we'll just weigh things up as we see them, and we'll take the most safe option.
When a fellow four-wheel driver comes back from an obstacle telling you that they didn't pass it because they thought it was too dangerous, that's an indication that you all need to sit down and have a good chat about whether you want to proceed or head back based on that advice. After having a good chat with each other, we decided that we had a major advantage with this Pascoe River crossing. We had 2 vehicles, they only had 1. Always a greater advantage when you've got that second vehicle. We decided we'd at least get down to the Pascoe River, have a good look around, and make our decision once we got there, rather than hightailing it with our tail between our legs without even having a look.
So on these mogully washed out tracks, this is where a coil conversion really comes into its own element. It's just gliding through here like Spider-Man up a wall. The problem here is the left wheel's going to get height before the right wheel, so that could be a shitty situation. We're just going to check the depth, and it's not deep at all here, but this water's so murky, you know, I've come unstuck in situations like this before and nearly rolled it. So you just test the depth, and that's fine. It's not going to kick us over. We're good to go. About 2 hours into Frenchman's track from Wenlock River. It's been a mixture of washouts, off cambers, and the section we're on now is actually really good. It's a graded section, so I reckon we're about half an hour or so from the Pascoe River crossing, where all will be revealed.
One thing these four-wheel drivers didn't mention was the treacherous descent down into the Pascoe River. This thing was epic. Moguls everywhere. Rollover opportunities abound.
Sam reckons this will buff out.
This dodgy section of track is about 100 metres long, though some of the most dangerous conditions we think we've seen the entire journey, including anything we'd seen on the old coach road. We all agreed that this section of the track prior to the crossing of the river was very hectic. And it was a case of, if you made it to the river and decided that you couldn't cross the river, there was no reversing back out of it. So we needed to take a good look at both that section of track and also the river itself, because if you're committed to one, you're committed to them both.
So we've made our way here to the Pascoe River, which is the biggest obstacle that we've found on Frenchman's track. Now, certainly it's a flowing river through here and we've walked through it and it's not moving us, so we're confident that it's not going to move the vehicles. However, there's some big boulders through there that we need to pick a good line through, so we feel like we've nutted that out. Now it's just a case of driving that line. So we'll sort of stand on a few rocks and give Sam some perspective on where to drive. But right now we're going to take a look at this track down, because we're parked about 300 metres up here, and this drive down into Pascoe is, well, we believe, more sketchy than the river itself. So we're going to take a look at that now.
After we completed the reconnaissance of those two major obstacles, we walked back up the hill to get the vehicle started. As per the plan, Sam was to take it slow as I guided him past any danger.
Obviously we had a bit of information this morning that was telling us that that river was too high, so we just went straight down there, took a look at it, we feel comfortable. This track down into it though is pretty sketchy, but we've just walked back up it again, taken a close look, and we're confident we've got a good line to drive down, because once you're committed down there, you're not reversing.
Sam rallied both vehicles to a place close to the river in case we needed recovery options.
Frenchman's track is predominantly an easy to mild track, but getting down into the Pascoe River area is difficult. It's moguly, you need a spotter, and you really need to take your time, which was what we've done here. We've brought both vehicles down, and we've got another hard little section into the Pascoe River crossing itself, and we're confident it's going to go smoothly.
Once in position, the Black Knight was brought down to start the crossing, and right at that moment, an audience arrived in the form of a motorcycle touring squad and became eager spectators for what was about to unfold. Sam, being the charismatic millennial that he is, wasn't shy to have an audience, and with all the underwater hazards memorised, proceeded into the Pascoe River with the Black Knight. No problemo. Sam and the Black Knight had no issues with the water crossing, nowhere near as dramatic as we thought it might be, and so glad we didn't turn around after hearing the thoughts of those other four-wheel drivers. Once the Black Knight was safely on the other side of the Pascoe, Sam walked back up the hill to grab the torpedo and bring her down. And by this time, the motorcycle gang was pretty keen for us to move on. The torpedo has been an amazing vehicle on this journey. It looks like a support vehicle compared to the Black Knight, but even with the extra weight and leaf springs, the torpedo aided up and we were able to get out of there pretty quickly. There's no denying that by the time we had both rigs parked up on the other side of the Pascoe, we'd arrived at a very momentous occasion. We had now completed the most difficult obstacles Cape York has to offer without incident, a feat we were all very proud and grateful for. Even the weather gods looked kindly upon us. We didn't want to count our chickens too early because we didn't want to get too complacent, but we were all stoked that we completed all 3 tracks in the way we did. Sure, in hindsight we could make some improvements, but those thoughts took nothing away from the realisation that our Cape York adventure was a huge success, in no small part to great vehicles, great preparation, execution, and a few top blokes who didn't shy away from giving it their all.
That was a great example of when to use a front locker then. Clearly we had that right wheel lifting up, we were losing traction at the front end when we really needed to bite into that left front wheel on the rock. The only way we could do that was with the harrow blocker. So there we have it. That was the Pascoe River crossing on the Frenchman's track, certainly living up to a reputation there. Now we were slightly put off when we heard those rumours about the water being really high this morning, but you know what, we came down, we took our time, we walked it out, we assessed the depth of the water and we picked a line that we were comfortable and confident with, and Sam executed brilliantly. Nothing more to add there other than we're super stoked because our far north Queensland adventure is drawing to a close, but we're also super sad for the same reason.
This last 2 weeks has been an amazing journey, and one none of us will ever forget, pushing our vehicles and ourselves to the limit to reach all the milestones we'd set before starting the voyage.
There's always one last hiccup, that could have been it, and maybe another, but that is a great illustration of what choosing different lines will do. In the Black Knight we reared up because I had the rear wheel in that hole there because I thought I could with a coil conversion, but we chose a much more sensible line with the torpedo here and it looked super smooth and super safe.
With the curtain now lowered over Frenchman's track, it's time for us to wave a sad goodbye to the stunning Cape York Peninsula. We leave this beautiful region overflowing with fond memories for us all, an unforgettable sense of accomplishment and the bonds of brotherhood and friendship that can only be forged from the fires of striving and uniting to overcome the beauty and the peril of nature. Would we do it again? You bet.
So here we are at the end of Frenchman's track. We're down the Portland Road end, so we've travelled from west to east. My thoughts so far, well, this track really is a tale of 2 parts. There's quite easy sections, flat sections, straight sections, just corrugations, and then you hit these gnarly washed out sections which are sort of mogully and require a second look. Certainly the 2 highlights and the 2 well-known sections on this track are the river crossings. Firstly the Wenlock and the Pascoe. Wenlock for us was a piece of cake. It was harder getting down into that area. We had a lovely camp there and we sailed on the next morning. Now that's today. It's certainly been a difficult day today to some extent. Getting down into the Pascoe River, lots of spotting, lots of line checking, getting out of the vehicle, taking a closer look. But we got through unscathed, no vehicle damage, which is all you want, right? So basically getting across the Pascoe River, it was fine. We walked our track. There was a few big boulders there which we stood on top of so Sam could see us as we travelled on through, and then we got out the other side. Now getting out the other side, there's gnarly mogully sections as well, so you're not through the woods or the river until you're through it. So we're out the other end of it now. We've had a great time on Frenchman's track. Who's this track for? 2 vehicles for a start, recovery equipment. I'd say experienced 4-wheel drivers only. But then again, we have a beginner in our midst and he did pretty well. So we'll have a chat to the guys in a minute and see how they got on. All right, so this trip, of course, would not have happened in this way if it wasn't for the 2 drivers I have. Firstly, Sam to my left, Mitch to my right. Let's have a chat firstly to you, Sam. Look, how many times have you watched Frenchman's track on video?
Oh, plenty of times, and all of them are different, so.
Do you think watching these tracks first on YouTube would help prepare you mentally for crossing firstly the Wenlock, Pascoe and other bits and pieces in between?
Yeah, I guess to a certain extent. I think when you get down there, obviously, water height's going to change and you get a rough layout of what things look like, but yeah, I can't say. To be honest, it was different to what it looked like on YouTube.
Yeah, it's certainly a constantly evolving landscape, Cape York, and that's because of the heavy rains and floods they get through here. Like I saw Gunshot a few years ago and it looked completely different this year. So certainly having a look on YouTube will help you to a certain extent, but obviously you're going to have to use first principles of recovery, of taking out and getting a closer look and that sort of thing.
Exactly.
Good man.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, here's the man himself, Mitch. Mitch, obviously we've mentioned, excuse me, you're a beginner, but you've really come along these last few weeks. I would say you've got more experience in the last 2 weeks than most new 4-wheel drivers are getting 2 years. How do you feel so far about what you've seen on Frenchman's track, and what do you think you've learnt mostly from this track?
It's pretty, I didn't drive a whole lot of it. I drove like a middle section between the 2 obstacles. So for me, there was a lot of ruts and moguls to sort of traverse. They weren't too bad. So a little bit of experience there. Not much different to what we've been through prior to that. Did a little bit of spotting and that was good. Really just kind of helped see what other people are seeing outside of the cab when you're going down stuff. So that's a bit of experience there.
So sort of getting angles from both the spotter's perspective, being in the cab with Sam and, I guess just seeing more of the same stuff. It's just, compounding your knowledge. Would you agree?
Yeah, just a different aspect, different perspective. And yeah, like you say, compounding that knowledge. It was different experience spotting, that's for sure.
Nice one, thank you, mate. Well, certainly you never stop learning, whether it's YouTube or doing the track yourself. Hey, we're all here to learn. We all make mistakes, but we're all trying, and that's the main point, and having fun.